Hello everybody and welcome back to LMM, and if you're enjoying the kind of stuff that you're seeing on the channel at the moment, how about giving this video a like and maybe subscribing to the channel to help us grow. Now many of you will recognise this. This is Atlas, my Lansing Bagnall Towar, spelt with an R, and it is an EV, and this is how I plan to go completely carbon neutral here in the shed. Yes, obviously I jest, but as battery electrics go, this is one of the few that I really care about. And several of you will be aware that of late you haven't really seen this thing, and that is for one very good reason. And that was because of this, the plaque inside, which reads, "You must not use or work on this truck without having read and understood the operating and safe working handbook." Now, as we did not have the handbook or the instruction manual for this thing, that meant that apparently to this plate we could not use it, and it says there authorized drivers only. So that was a huge problem until now, because recently a good friend of mine has got me this. This is the operating and service manual for a Lansing Bagnall tug, full of lovely things. In fact, it's a lovely brochure that's full of lovely things for their particular one, all this interesting stuff, the circuits, how you meant to look after it, and everything. So that being the case, and having read and understood the manual, I am now cleared to use this. There is one slight other problem though, and that is that my battery pack is completely and utterly foobarred. And I know the question that's going to be on all of your lips: have I tried giving it a good charge? Yes. In truth, the batteries on this have never been particularly good. A full charge will give it maybe 45 minutes to 30 minutes to less of actual operation time, which has been going downhill rapidly. And the recent cold spell that we've had has pretty much finished it off. I had them on charge and it's done very little. We had absolutely nothing because they just lost all charge. Charged it up and I've got what you see on there now. It isn't even enough for the thing to move, which is probably not helped by the fact that the brakes are also dragging. You'll see over here we have a handbrake. And when I do this and push it forward into the opposition, it comes back on. And that's because when I operate this, all it actually does is it bends the rod down here, and that rod goes through to the rear brakes. So that is not actually operating those, and they're not actually doing anything. So that means I need to have a look underneath. But that isn't obviously the main fault. The fault is the batteries aren't doing anything. The brakes are just a compound on top of that. Now this thing is quite heavy, mostly on account of that rather substantial battery box in the middle. And if I want to jack up the back to work on those brakes, it means it becomes a trifle unsteady because there's only one front wheel. So to try and lessen that weight, I'm going to remove the battery box so I can have a good look at the batteries in there and see if there is any life in any of the cells at all. Which obviously means that first up, I have to get the seat off, and that reveals the battery pack. In order to facilitate taking out the battery box, I need to connect the wires. Now, there is a feed taken off here, which runs there, and that is for the light on the front, so that's constantly on. And as you can see from the fact this is shiny, I have broken the plastic clip trying to remove it. So we're going to see if it will now give up and come off. Ooh, there we go. So I suspect that this being fed in there has not helped matters at all. But if we take that out and remove that, that would remove that one. So that's disconnected there, and we can feed this out. Or we could. Oh, I see, this has been broken so many times. What a pointless manoeuvre that was, Lawrie. Oh well. Put that back in there. And then disconnect that. And this will, with a bit of force, I suspect, wiggle its way through there. He says, optimistically. Or it will just pull out like that. Sorted. So I'm sure the question you're asking is, how am I going to get the battery box out? It appears in my planning that I'd failed to take into account one thing, and that was that the engine crane doesn't actually fit underneath the tug. So that meant that I had to go and find the jack and lift up one corner to be able to get the crane underneath, which meant lifting it up to a frankly alarming angle to give the necessary clearance. But soon enough, I had the crane underneath and inserted a bar through the holes to be able to lift with, and then got myself a nice bit of strap and I wrapped it around said bar and then fed it through over to the other side and then back round and into the hook of the lifting crane. And with that all hooked up, tied off and ready, I was ready to start lifting, because how hard could it be? Gently I started to take the slack out of the strap, and slowly the battery began to head skywards. This was much more difficult than I thought it was going to be, probably because the fact the tug was on the H and the crane was trying to lift straight up. As a result, it meant the battery kept jamming, and when it did lift up, it rather jerked out. And as I got closer to it actually being free, it decided to get properly stuck and started to lift the tug up as well. And at this moment, it's when I thought, this is getting a little bit sketchy with one wheel off the ground. Maybe I should put it down and try again. That'll be it though. Putting it down freed it off. Oh my days. Did not enjoy that. And that's what the pit looks like without the battery pack there inside it. So now we'll get an idea of just how badly stuck on the brakes are, because without the battery pack this should be a lot easier to move because it's a lot lighter. It's made some difference. So here we are with the battery box back on terra firma. Certainly it's the first time I've ever taken it out, and I rather suspect it's the first time it's been away from the tug in many a year. It is a 48 volt battery box, and it is made up of 24 separate cells. So doing a quick bit of maths, that means each one should be 2 volts, and I rather suspect that they're not. Now what we're going to do now is split this in half and have 2 24 volt banks. And this video is sponsored by Topdon, who you might remember sent me that not that long ago, which is a very useful battery charger. But they've sent me this battery tester, which is in this nice box. And I haven't had it out before. Ooh, that's swanky, isn't it? So there's this magical thing, a book of words, and using this cool digi thing, we're going to bung it on and see if these batteries have any life left in them. And I rather suspect it's going to come back and tell us what we all know. Nada. This is quite nice actually. This feels like a proper garagey machine. So number 12 will be this. So we're going to take this off and see if the clip will actually remove. Yeah, this is life expired, isn't it? That's the second of these plastic covers that I've broken today. Oh, there we go. So the fact that all of these have welded themselves shut is probably not a good start. So we'll take that off there, which thus puts this down to being 2 24 volt systems. So we'll get our little machine out, and a big thank you again to Topdon for being our sponsor. Do like that, and we like the products that they make. It's all better when you have a sponsor that you like. So we're going to put that on there, positive bite onto there, and a negative bite. There we go. Error, check connection. Right, let's try that. Well, that's disappointing. Let's go put on a proper battery to see if it does work. So if I put it onto a different battery, it does indeed power up. And it's got lots of nice modes on it, like battery test, enter, regular, yeah, probably that. Not healthy, replace. That's a new battery that is, but that's useful. So what we have learned is this little doohickey works very well. And a massive thank you again to Topdon, and I look forward to finding out however many of my other batteries are knackered. What we'll do now though is see if we can get any life into this at all. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we'll take this one off, and I suspect this will also break. Oh no, that actually came off as it should. So this should be 6. So this should be 12 volts. So what we're going to do is take this out, put that back in there, and put the charger on it, this one here, and we'll see that when we connect this up, whether it thinks that there is any battery left in there at all. So the negative comes onto here, and the positive clips into there. And it thinks it can charge it. So we'll see if this can charge it, and we'll come back to it later and see if that pack will charge up or not. So what I'll do is break this up into some more sections and get some more chargers out. As I was setting this all up ready to leave it with the banks charging, I found that this one, if I twist it, it all goes on the H, as we say in Suffolk. So I suspect that might be my knackered one. So I've got a battery here. If I can get this to come off, then we might be working out which of the cells is the bad ones. So I've recovered this cell, and this, if you pull it, the terminal comes out the battery. So I suspect that this one, and it smells very sulphury, is the root of my problems. So I may not need an entire new battery pack. I have got these charging. This one has got up to 75% rather quickly, which is alarming. But this one makes noises and is totally knackered. So I've come back. It's been 24 hours since I set the 3 chargers up to try and charge the 3 separate 12-volt banks. And as you can see, that one's on about 75%. This one's flashing that it's over 75%, and that one's just going, charging boss, doing my best. So they are at least taking charge. They're all smart chargers, so they would shut down should there be an issue. So the first thing I want to do with this is I'm going to disconnect this lot, plug it into Atlas behind me, and see if a combined total of 36 volts having some charge and the remaining 4 in there, which I've left in there, giving me like 44 volts, is enough to make that do anything, or if they're completely dodoed. So with everything reconnected, giving me a maximum available of 44 volts, I've plugged it back in, come around here, turn it on, and unfortunately, it still thinks that it's on the same voltage. It's still flashing on nothing. And we'll see if we've got any drive. Oh, we do. Oh. That's interesting. So what we've done there is I managed to energize 36 volts because I only had 3 chargers, 3 12-volt banks. So 36 volts of that has had a charge and taken some charge, which means that this is now active again. Now, those 44 volts worth of cells that are connected to it still tell me that the capacity of them, the amperage they're going to produce, is low because it thinks that it doesn't have much range. However, we have gone and found that it is actually enough to get it to move again. And that's very important because it means at the very least this becomes active and useful again. So that's very exciting indeed. So that's very well and good. This thing is alive. So it's not a completely lost cause, and perhaps that battery bank shows some signs of coming back to life. But the interesting thing is, I've been looking through the manual and there's a couple of interesting things that I've learnt. Point 1, inside the manual, I made a point about the plate saying that you had to have read it before you operated it. Well, clearly whoever had this one never read this bit that says that you've got to read it and then you sign here to say that you've read it. So they never read it. That's the first point. Now, the second point is over here, which is on this page here, which talks about the state of the battery and testing it. And for that, you need a hydrometer or a hydrometer. And depending on where this thing floats when you draw the electrolyte up, tells you if it's a good or bad battery. So I went online and went and found myself one. And this is the aforementioned hydrometer, which we open up the little flap here, squeeze out all the air and draw up some liquid. And that's meant to float. As this has not floated, it's very much in the red area, and that implies that this one is knackered. Now, the only thing I have in this one's defense is the fact that it wasn't actually on charge. I'd already drawn this one out of the box because I need to get this one out to be able to remove the dodgy one over there. Now, so it's entirely possible the reason this hasn't moved is because there is no electrical charge in that whatsoever. But this one might well be foobarred. And also notice, PPE. I've got gloves and glasses on. So it's possible that this is just how the batteries are. They're not actually working as batteries anymore, and we're just getting a short amount of charge in there, nothing to actually run it for a long time. Or it's possible that that battery, with its dodgy terminals, has affected the conductivity throughout all of the bank, and that one there has thrown out everything. So if I'm lucky, it will just be one bad cell that I need to find, rather than a whole new battery box. So following the failure of that particular cell, and I'm not even going to bother to test that one because it's knackered, I think the most logical thing to do now is to go through every single one of these with the hydrometer and work out how many of them it thinks is good or bad, and that will give me a good idea of how many of these I actually need to look to replace. If I'm lucky, most of these will come out good because we know the majority of these have now had a charge. So if I have charged batteries which at least do something on that gauge, I'll have an idea. Let me know in the comments below now, guys, how optimistic are you about these showing some signs of life? Because I'll be honest, I'm not very. I've got my pen here and this here, so we'll try this one first and see what we get. Drop it in. Right, well that thinks it's completely and utterly knackered. So that's one on the knackered front here. Let's try next door to it. I'll be honest with you guys, this process wasn't particularly exciting, and forcing you to endure seeing me do all 24 cells? Yeah, I'm not going to do that, so I'll sped up this section and just imagine you've seen the rest. So with everything tested, I've got the battery pack back connected up and back on charge. And I have a grand total of, wait for it, 16 out of 24 which don't even register on the hydrometer. Or hydrometer, whatever you want to call it. The good news is that the rest of them do register. And out of that, 2 are good batteries. The rest of them are somewhere between 1.11 and 1.125. Now, that is on the red scale of not good on the hydrometer. But the book does say that a discharge battery is someone putting 1.14. So they are below the threshold, but not catastrophically low. So some of them I have hope for. Some of them. So this is where I need your help, because I need a minimum of 16 more of these. They are just under 18 inches high, and they are 2 volts each. I don't know the ampage. So if you know of any machines that are being scrapped that have some of these that are good, or even an entire decent battery box, I would be so very grateful if you could get in contact to help out. I know that you can buy new battery boxes. I know you can get them redone and remade, but honestly at the moment I just do not have the money to do that, because I know it's going to be in the realms of thousands of pounds, which realistically needs to go on other vehicles in the shed and not on a novelty. But hopefully, if some of you guys do know, please let us know, and hopefully between us, if everybody can find me just one battery that works, we could have a decent power pack. So please help me get this working again, because it has shown life. It is alive and moving again. I just need some more of these. So with that, thank you for watching this adventure into seeing what this will do. My next thing I'm going to do is get all of that charged up, put it together, put it back into this, and see just how long the battery lasts before it doesn't move at all. And obviously I'll retest everything once I've got some more charge in there and see if it's made any difference. And with that, thank you very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed seeing the little red thing again, seeing it move a little bit under its own power, and finding out a bit more about how all of this works. And with that, thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time, and hopefully, between all of us, we'll be able to sort this out and get some more of these silly little batteries. Because the only other thing is, on that battery there, I had a look to see how many amps was currently in the pack, and it went 1.8. It says on this that it should be 48 volts and 200 amps. So, or maybe a few amps down. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. If you have enjoyed this one, how about clicking somewhere on the screen now for the video where we actually got this and it turned up, and somewhere else probably for the episode of What's Broken Now, where we tested out to see just what it would pull. And with that, we'll see you next time. Ta-ra. And if you do know where one of these is, please let me know. Oh, batteries, it's the future, they say. It's going to save the world, they say.